Okie dokie, we are live. Let's see who we've got joining us. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hello.
Right on time. Beautiful. For an interviewing skills webinar, this is a good first impression that you are here on time. So that's great.
Yes.
It is officially 5 p.m. We are going to wait maybe an extra minute, and we'll start at 5:01 p.m. sharp and get going so that we can honor your time. I hope everybody's doing well and staying nice and cool. It has been especially warm these past couple of days. I know I'm feeling it right now. All right.
All right. So maybe we should get started.
Let's rock and roll.
All right. Do you want to start with introducing yourself, Bea?
Sure, absolutely. Good evening, everybody. Capistrano Unified School District, thank you for joining us. Monica and Bea, my name is Bea. I'm one of the Futurology counselors. And Monica as well, if you want to say hi, Monica.
Hi, so I'm also a Futurology college and career counselor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys. I think in the participants window as well, we have our other one of our other counselors, Miss Kristen Jones, and also our coordinator, Anthony Rusamano. So thank you so much for joining us today as well. You guys are in the hands of some real experts here, so we hope that you find this useful. Again, we're so happy to have you here with us for the Interviewing 101 webinar. We are from Futurology, CUSD's free college and career counseling team. What we're going to do today is we're going to start you off with something that we'd like for you to complete so that we have an idea of where you guys stand as far as interviewing skills and tips and knowledge goes. Some of you have already done your homework and completed this survey, and we thank all of you who have done it. If you haven't, grab your smartphone if you have it, turn on your camera, hover your camera over this QR code, and it will direct you to a website where we'll ask you to answer a few questions. We're going to give you just about a minute and a half, 2 minutes to do this. If you can. If you can't, don't worry about it. But if you can, it would be very helpful. So we'll start the timer now, and we'll give you about a minute and a half, 2 minutes to do this, and we're going to move on to today's presentation. Again, this is a pre-survey. We want to get a sense of where you are at right now in terms of your comfort level with interviewing. So go ahead and if you've never done this before, it's actually super fun. You literally just turn on your camera and hold your camera, over that QR code so that you're focusing on it, and it should direct you to a website. Most phones are equipped for that, not all. So maybe about another minute. And again, if you can't do it, don't worry about it. Okay, no pressure, no stress. That's okay.
Yeah, thank you so much for completing that, giving us some feedback. And we'll ask you at the end again to kind of give us more feedback, but thank you so much for doing that right now.
Yes.
Okay, just a few more seconds.
Go to 5:04 and we'll move on. Okie dokie, guys. Go ahead, Monica.
Sure. So before we get into the topics we're going to talk about today, I do want to make sure that we cover what our program does and what kind of services we provide. So if you know of us, you know that we provide one-on-one personalized counseling appointments. You also know that we do group events and workshops. A lot of those have moved to an online platform because of the pandemic. Hours just to accommodate more students and more families. We used to meet with students at the shops in Mission Viejo. We are currently holding online appointments online through Zoom. So if you want to get support in finding the best fit college search and selection, application strategy, testing planning, paying for college, all of those things, you can visit our website. The link is right there, and you can make an appointment with us to meet with one of us. So thank you so much. I'm going to move on. All right. So with this webinar, we hope to accomplish 3 things. The first thing is that we hope that students gain an understanding of the steps required to prepare for an interview. We would also like for students to gain an understanding of hiring trends in today's world of work. And finally, we want them to obtain foundational interviewing skills so that they are successful with any interviews that they might have coming up or interviews they might have in the future as adults, okay? So we are going to be covering a lot of different things, and we're going to try to do so within the hour so we have time for your questions at the end. So we are going to start out with talking about hiring trends in the world of work. We are also going to be talking about what is the purpose of an interview? Why do employers have interviews, right? And then also types of interviews. We're also going to be going over some key terms that I think are important for you to know so that you can understand this conversation that we're having today. We're also going to go over different sections or different stages of getting prepared for an interview, right? So we're going to go over what to do before the interview, during the interview, and then after the interview. And then we're going to finish off with some resources that that we hope can help you prepare for the world of work, interviews, and all of that. So let's start off with with talking about hiring trends in the world of work. So I know you're here to learn more about the actual interviewing skills, how to develop your interviewing skills, what interviewing skills you need. But I want to quickly go over just a few things that will hopefully answer some important questions. Like, how do I prepare myself to enter the workforce? How do I prepare myself for the career I want to pursue? How do I, as a high school student, prepare to enter the world of work, right? Besides working on your interviewing skills, what can you do as a high school student to kind of get ready for the world of work, okay? So one way to do that is to actually to follow what we call the career process, right? So as counselors, we emphasize this career process a lot in our work. So how many of you have heard of this process? Let me know in the chat. How many of you have actually heard of the career process? You might have heard us about it in one of our workshops, like Map Your Future, or one of our career exploration workshops, or during our one-on-one appointment. So if you haven't, we want students to follow this process because we want you to have fulfilling careers. We want you to be happy with the choices that you make, right? So usually students, the way that they choose college, right, the way that they make the decision to enter college is that they start off kind of at the college step, right? Well, they choose colleges based on what they hear from other people, what schools are ranked really high, right? But we actually want you to follow this process where the first step is kind of learning more about yourself, learning more about what kind of things are interesting to you, what interests you have, what values do you have, and how those relate to career pathways, which is step 2, right? So during step 1, you kind of do more that assessment, interest profilers, career assessments, right? So to learn more about yourself. And then once you do that, you move on to step 2, where you can, once you get results based on the interest that you have, the values, you get results of careers that match those things. So once you get those things, you can kind of do more research in step 2. Doing more research means like, joining an internship, joining a specific club, maybe interviewing someone in that specific career, all those different things, right? So step 2 is really important because you're doing a lot of the exploration in there. And then third step is kind of figuring out what are the majors and careers that will help me achieve this career pathway that I've been matched with. And then from there, you kind of look at institutions that offer that specific major and training. So that's how you kind of follow that pathway, the career, major, and college. And then finally, just the last step would be to finding colleges that best fit the needs, right? What's the college that's going to provide me with a specific training and resources so that I can achieve that career pathway that have matched my interests and skills and values. So that's generally what one way to kind of figure out what it is that how you can prepare for the world of work. Okay, so another way that you can do so is through kind of looking at exploring the actual world of work, today's world of work, right? So answering the question of what does the workplace look like today? Okay, so this might be the first time you're hearing the phrase world of work. So I'm going to kind of just spend a few seconds just kind of going over what that means. So the world of work is just a phrase that we use to kind of describe all the different structures, trends, elements that shape today's workplace. So it's mainly shaped by employers, employees, sometimes even larger scale kinds of things like, today's pandemic is affecting what the workplace looks like today. Also technology, right? So we are able to connect with people all over the world in our workplace because of technology. And because of technology, we've been able to work. A lot of us have been able to work from home. That's how the workplace is kind of shaped. So I want to touch on, the world of work today. Today has been kind of changed really quickly. So a lot of you who have interviews coming up might be having web-based interviews. A lot of people who are looking for jobs right now might be, going into interviews through Zoom or other online platforms. Okay, and something that you might already have thought about too, that technology has affected the world of work, is that social media, right, has affected the world of work. Employers now, because there's so much access to information on the internet, employers might be actually looking at your digital footprint. So they might be looking at your social media platforms and use that to determine whether or not you're going to be a good fit for their company. So Instagram, Snapchat, any social media that you use. So another thing that you can find out.
I actually have a question, Monica, for everybody.
Sure. Go ahead, B.
Based on what Monica just said, thank you, Monica. How many of you would be totally comfortable if an employer were to look at all of your social media right now? Like if they were to Google you on the internet, how many of you, I want some action in the chat box, would feel like, oh, I've got this. Like there's nothing embarrassing at all that I have out there in the world. How many of you would feel really good about that? I'd like to see what your thoughts are on this right now. Would you feel good about a prospective employer Googling you today?
Okay.
Anybody? Yeah?
Yeah, a lot of you would feel comfortable sharing.
Excellent.
Good. I see a big no in caps. So yeah, we want you to be mindful of what you put on there. Besides you being, a minor and all of that, concerns with that, we also want you to be mindful of, for your future employment, that you don't put anything on there that might potentially be not a good sign for employers. So that's our thing with digital footprint. That's how technology has kind of affected. I know everybody uses social media, so you want to be mindful of that. So another thing that you want to why you want to explore the workplace is to know what skills are in demand, right? So it's really important that you explore the world of work, because you want to know what are employers looking for, what do I need to be knowledgeable about, what are the skills I need to work on so that I am a competitive applicant. So it is important that you know what skills are in demand. So I'm actually going to go over those things so that you don't have to go and look for it yourself. So one of the things that I'm going to be sharing with you is this report by LinkedIn called 2019 Global Talent Trends. For those of you that don't know, LinkedIn is a actual professional network platform where employers and employees can make a profile, and a lot of people look for new positions, look for new jobs through LinkedIn. So it is a professional platform that people use. It's kind of like putting up your resume, but on a social media platform. So you'll put your education and all the different experience that you might have. So one trend that LinkedIn kind of discovered through this report is that a lot of companies are searching for employees, applicants that have a combination of hard skills and soft skills, but they're putting a lot of emphasis on soft skills. Right. So if this is your first time kind of hearing these two terms, hard skills are kind of like those technical skills, technical knowledge. So it's like if you being bilingual or being multilingual, data mining, all those different things are hard skills. And soft skills are skills like teamwork, creativity, collaboration, empathy, organization, time management. So those are skills that a lot of companies are increasingly looking for, and kind of hard to find, because a lot of applicants kind of emphasize their hard skills too much. So with technology and automation, artificial intelligence, because they can't replicate these soft skills, these skills are more in demand. So we have discovered that it is not enough to know how to use a network security or do a statistical analysis. You also have to be able to work well with others and think critically and use your creativity to solve difficult problems. LinkedIn's report also reveals that about 80% of employers say that soft skills are increasingly important for company success. So that's a big number of employers saying that this is such an important quality or qualities that they're looking for employers to kind of have a successful company. So it's not just about those hard skills. So what does that mean for you as someone who is looking for a job, an internship, or whatever it might be? What it means is that you need to highlight your soft skills. You need to be able to demonstrate that you can work well with others. You need to be creative. You need to be able to manage your time well. So that's what it means. And those are skills that, that you can kind of work on while you're in high school, right? So you get all these different group projects, right? You get all these different opportunities in the classroom and maybe outside the classroom to kind of build on those soft skills. Make sure that when you are in those opportunities that you kind of make note of that you are building these really strong foundation for you to be able to be prepared to enter the workforce. So, right. So don't kind of dismiss one of these activities, because you could be building up on, like I said, that foundation to be a strong, competitive applicant as you enter the workforce. All right. So I'm going to move on this is just a really quick summary of what the world of work looks like today. There's definitely a lot more that that students need to learn about the world of work, but I just kind of wanted to give you a general overview, kind of quick snapshot of what the world of work looks like today, especially with with the pandemic going on. But if you have any more questions about the world of work, we'll be happy to answer your questions at the end of this webinar. So I'm going to move on. I'm going to kind of want to set an understanding of what some of the key terms before we begin discussing the interviewing tips. So these are terms that might come up in the, as we kind of go over all the interviewing tips. So the first one is just kind of applicant. I know I mentioned some of these already. So applicant is just a person who makes a form application for something, like I said, a job, an internship. An employer is the actual person or company who is hiring. Experience is just like any knowledge or practical skills that you've gained throughout your life, right? Maybe through working or volunteering in different settings. The first impression, I mean, that's kind of self-explanatory, but it's just the initial perception of a person upon first meeting. And then cover letter is just a summary describing all the different experience, skills, credentials that you make that qualify you for the position. It usually comes along with your resume. And then a resume is just a brief summary of all these different things like your personal education and professional qualifications. And then finally, references are people who can speak about your character and abilities. And these are usually former employer or mentor. Okay, so I have a few questions for you before we get moving along, just to kind of see where everybody's at. Okay, so first question is, how many of you have ever interviewed before? So let us know on the poll, how many of you have interviewed before?
It's looking like a 50-50 mix right now. All right, we're going to end the poll in 3, 2, and oh, people are changing their decisions last minute, you guys. Okay, ready? 3, 2, and 1. What you define as an interview. That's okay, guys. I'm ending the poll. Thank you for your participation.
All right, so many of you haven't interviewed before, and that was expected, right? You're here to learn more about interviewing skills. A few of you have interviewed. So for those of you who have interviewed, I am curious to know if you got the position or the job that you were interviewing for. Just to see where you're at. So go ahead and answer that poll if you have interviewed before and did you get the position? If you didn't, let us know.
Okay, so again, about 50-50, you guys. All right. Okay, ending the poll in 3, 2, and 1.
All right, so that gives me a perspective of who's in the room. And then last question, or actually there's 2 more questions. How many of you have an interview coming up, right? So how many of you decided to jump on here to get prepared for an interview? So go ahead and answer that.
Hopefully some of you are signed up for our mock interview if you're a junior or senior. All right. Okay, no wonder you guys are in here. You got stuff coming up that you have to prepare for. Smart people, very smart people. Okay, ending the poll in 3, 2, and 1.
And yeah, and I appreciate those that don't have an interview coming up, but you decided to join us. Like I said, this is a really, for you to get prepared for the world of work, you want to make sure that you build on those interviewing skills. And then we have one last question. Let me go to before the interview. I do kind of want to get a sense of what part of the interviewing process are you most concerned about? All right, so go ahead and answer that poll. I just want to get a sense of what is the part that you are most kind of concerned about. All right.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. Ending the poll in 3, 2 and 1. Thank you.
All right. So the most popular one was not preparing with enough research about the employer and company, which is good because it kind of leads me to our next kind of segue, which is, what is the biggest mistake you can make in a job interview according to employers? And you kind of all have the same concerns that employers have when it comes to, coming in for an interview, is that one of the biggest kind of mistakes that you can make according to employers is not having enough preparation, not doing enough research about the employer or the company. So I'm glad that a lot of you had that concern, because it's definitely something that you have to spend a lot of time in when you're preparing for an interview. You want to make sure that you do research. What is the company's mission? How large is the company? What kind of things are they doing? Who are the interviewers, right? If you can find out who are the people interviewing you, so that you feel more comfortable going in that room knowing that you know who these people are. Also, by you kind of exploring or researching the company, you can kind of you can highlight that knowledge you have during the interview, and it'll demonstrate to the employer that you are excited, that you are committed to being part of their team, right? So you want to make sure that you spend a lot of time doing the research, check their website, Google as much as you can about the employer. Hopefully you would have already done this even before you go in for an interview, because if you applied there, you more most likely did some sort of research to kind of apply for the position or the internship, whatever it is. So hopefully you already have even information about it before you go for an interview, but make sure you kind of do a deep dive about them and find out as much as you can about them. The second part that I kind of want you to do for preparation is practice some common interview questions. Practice with your friends, your siblings, your parent, your grandparents, anybody. Maybe you have a mentor who feels comfortable with providing, giving you some time to go over some interview questions. Practice until you feel like it's a conversation rather than something you're rehearsing. You don't want to go in there without having been kind of practicing these questions, because if you prepare enough, you kind of feel more comfortable with it. You will feel less anxious if you have actually been practicing enough to feel comfortable like it's a conversation. All right, so the other things that you can be doing to prepare is reviewing your resume, right? So I'm going to go ahead and ask the poll before I go over this presentation. I just want to know, how many of you have a resume?
Okay, we're going to end the poll in 3, 2, and 1. Thank you for your participation, guys.
All right. So many of you have a resume. That's great. If you don't, I'm going to go over just like some of the key parts of a resume. So a resume is usually the first thing an employer is going to see. So you need to make a good impression with your resume. You need to use it as a selling tool. You also need to tailor it to the job. So make sure that you look at the job description, that you kind of review all the different components of the job description and use that to kind of guide you through creating your resume. So you want to highlight those things that they're looking for with your resume. Also know your audience, know who's going to be looking at your resume. So some of the key parts that are in, this is just one of the templates that you could use. There's different ways of building your resume, but some of those key things that all resumes have are, your name, right? So you should put your name at the top, big, so that people know whose resume this belongs to. You also want to have contact information, right? So like email, phone number, and then I would keep the address just general, right? We don't want you put your full address just because some of you are still minors. So you want to just keep it to city and state. And then we also have headings, right? And then the other thing is just consistent formatting and fonts. So as you can see, it has this resume has a nice flow. It's consistent, it's clean, it's easy to read. So that's what you want to keep it at. You want to be consistent with the formatting and font. So you want to spend a lot of time kind of building your resume because, like I said, it's the first kind of thing that an employer is going to be looking at when they're considering you for employment. So review this before an interview. You want to make sure that you can talk really well about all the experiences that you've had, all the accomplishments that you have included in your resume. All right. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is cover letters. So how many of you actually have a cover letter? So go ahead and answer that in the poll.
Okie dokie.
All right.
Give you guys a few more seconds. Thank you. Oh.
All right. So many of you don't have a cover letter. So I'll spend some time talking about it, but cover letters are just another way your employer might ask you to, the employer might ask you to submit it along with your resume. Some of them might not, but a cover letter is just another way for you to describe in more detail what your qualifications are for a job or a position. They should complement your resume, not replicated, right? So you want to use sentence form. You want to use examples of why you're qualified for the position. So as you can see on this example, there are, these are actual paragraphs, these are actual sentences. So you have an opportunity to go more deeply into what qualifies you for the position. And again, kind of like the resume, there's general things that you should include on a cover letter, like the contact information. And what's a little different is you have to include the company or employer information. So their address, name, all those different things. And then you also have to date at the date. And as you can see, it's very formal. You have to use dear, whoever you're addressing this cover letter to, and then sincerely. So it's a very formal letter. And so you also want to review this before any interview you might have. You want to make sure that you can, again, speak on what it is that qualifies you for the job. So reviewing your cover letter is one way to kind of do that. And then I also want to go over just references. How many, actually, this is not a poll question, but so if you are applying for a job, some employers might actually be asking you for references, right? They want to check in and see what former employers, maybe teachers, maybe mentors have to say about you, right? What it's like to work with you. So if they do ask you for references, make sure that they are recent, right? These are people that you've had interactions with lately, not somebody from like maybe 10 years ago, unless you know them really well and you're still kind of keeping in touch with them. They have to know you well, right? So that they can speak about all the different things that make you a great applicant. And then also let them know that you want to include them as your reference, just so they know that to expect if they get a call, right? It's not a complete stranger. And also just so that they know you can kind of talk to them about what kinds of things that you would like them to highlight when they do talk to employers, kind of remind them of who you are. So you want to notify them right away. And again, the formatting or this template has the contact information. You want to include also the reference contact information and how they're related to you. Like I said, if they're a teacher, a former employer, or a mentor. So because references are such an important piece of getting you hired or getting you that internship that you're looking for, you want to make sure that you build bridges with anybody who might be potentially a reference for you, not burn bridges, right? So if you're going to put teachers as references, you want to build those relationships with your teachers. And this is something that you're going to be kind of have to use throughout your life as you enter the world of work, because you're going to need references for pretty much any job that you're going to be kind of applying for. So you want to make sure that you build relationships with people who can be references for you. All right. So I'm going to go over really quickly what other things you should be doing to prepare for the interview. So before the interview, you definitely want to answer any communication that they might send you, any emails, any phone calls, because, like I said, you want to seem like you are a reliable applicant. You also want to send out, if you you do have an interview, you want to send a thank you to an employer, right? You want to let them know how excited you are, how much you're looking forward to the interview, how much you're looking forward to kind of demonstrating how qualified you are for the position. So make sure that that's a part of your routine when you're preparing for an interview, that you start communication with the employer even before the interview. You also want to plan ahead, right? You want to plan ahead about when you're supposed to arrive, how long it's going to take you to get there, right? Is there going to be traffic that you have to consider when you're preparing? Make sure that you arrive about 15 to 20 minutes before the interview. Don't arrive too early, just because that just makes employers kind of that puts a lot of pressure on employers. So make sure that you don't arrive too early. If you do, just kind of hang out outside before you even go inside to kind of check in with the secretary, whoever it is that's helping you get settled in before you actually enter the interview. And then some of those things that you should be bringing to an interview is a professional briefcase or a purse, the job description, so that you can review it really quickly before the interview, so you can have it fresh in your mind. You want to bring a resume, cover letter, and reference list, just so you can kind of use it as you're preparing for the interview, and then also just in case the employer asks for it. You want to have a notebook and pen, just so you can write notes about anything that you need to know after the interview, or during the interview. You might be allowed to write down notes, or I know I use a notebook and a pen afterwards, just to kind of keep notes of what are the things that and I know B is probably going to touch up on this as well. I would take a notebook and a pen just to kind of make notes about what are the things that I need to kind of work on for the next interview. And so the other thing that I forgot to mention is to get enough rest before the interview, have a good meal, right? So you already have enough kind of anxiety about the interview, so we don't want to add that not getting enough sleep and not having a good meal to your plate. So make sure that you do that before the interview. Get enough rest. So one thing this is a really important part of your preparation routine, is to prepare your outfit, prepare the things you're going to wear for the interview, right? Because dressing for the interview is going to make the first one of the first impressions. This is the first time they're going to be meeting you in person. So you want to make sure that you dress well for the interview. You know, employers are going to make a quick judgment about you based on how you look. So you want to make sure that you are looking good. So make sure that you invest a lot of time and probably some money on, getting a blazer, getting a nice suit. For ladies, you want to make sure that if it's pants, or whether it's pants or skirt, that it is kind of like some slacks, not like a colorful skirt for boys or men. Gentlemen, you need to have a dress shirt, some tie, dress pants, dress shoes. So make sure that those shoes, though, are comfortable closed-toe shoes. because you are in an interview, you want to be comfortable. And then those tie boys, make sure you keep it kind of simple, nothing too colorful. We don't want it to distract from you. We want them to compliment you. And then hair, just neat and comb. That goes for everybody, right? So for ladies, you can, if you have long hair, you can put it up in a nice ponytail or bun. But also, if you do have it down, make sure that you have it nice and combed. And maybe if you want to straighten it or curl it, make sure that it's that it's nice and neat. For accessories, I think a universal one that anybody I think can wear is a watch. So whether it's a smartwatch or a regular watch, a watch is an accessory to kind of add to your professional look. And then, but any other accessories that you want to add to your interview attire, you want to keep it minimal. So not flashy, like kind of jewelry, anything like that, because again, it'll take away from you rather than complimenting your outfit. So that's pretty much it in terms of what kinds of things you need to do to prepare before the interview. I'm going to go ahead and pass it along to my colleague, B.
Okay, guys. Thank you so much, Monica. I hope you guys feel pumped to prepare and get ready for any upcoming interviews that you might have. Let's jump into what you can expect and what you should do when you actually do interview. Okay. So first of all, why is it important to know how to interview, right? I mean, you're here, so I'm imagining that many of you understand that it is important, but why? Interviews are not just for jobs, right? As high school students, you're well aware that you can interview for many different things, including positions for clubs at your school, for positions in organizations within your community. If you want to be maybe a camp director at your local, city's organization that offers summer camps or something like that, right? You interview for things like scholarships. Sometimes colleges will offer you the opportunity to interview with an admissions representative or an alumni. You might, if you decide to go to graduate school, be part of a group interview, and we'll talk about the different types of interviews in a little bit. And you could also interview for internships. I mean, there are so many different circumstances in which you will be asked to be part of an interview. And so it's important for you guys to know, the why of it all, right? Is that you should learn how to interview because you are going to interview one day. If not soon, it will happen eventually. So we want to be prepared for that. Okay. So what is the purpose of an interview? We know that we want to be good interviewers. That's why we're here. We know that it is important to know how to interview. What's the purpose of it? Why do people interview other people, right? If you break it down, essentially it's twofold, right? There's two parts of it because there are two sides involved. It's you and the interviewer or interviewers. Firstly, it's them asking like, hey, what can you contribute to our team? What can you contribute to our college? What can you do for us? Like, we want to know about you. This is an opportunity for you to showcase, everything that you have been able to accomplish above and beyond what is even stated in your resume. They're getting to know you, right? Are you a good match for them? But also on the other hand, you guys, don't forget this. You're also interviewing them in a sense. You're getting to know that other side and you're going to decide for yourself, does this feel right for me, right? When you're going into a business office to meet with an interviewer or going, into whatever organization it is, you're getting a sense of what their culture is like, their work culture. You're getting a sense of what their team dynamics are like, right? If there's more than one interviewer. So in that regard, you have a certain level of power in this because you also are evaluating them. So for those of you who get nervous, and all of us do, right, before an interview, it's important that you remember this is a two-way street. Right? Like, they're evaluating me, but I'm also evaluating them. Okay. This is not an interrogation. It is a conversation. Okay. And a conversation is what? Simply put, it is two or more people exchanging ideas. They're talking and they're exchanging ideas. That's it. And that's what you're doing. So it's not an interrogation. You've done nothing wrong. They're not out to get you, right? This is simply you doing everything right. And that's why you got the interview in the first place. So when you're feeling nervous, just remind yourself of that this is a two-way street. And the purpose is for both of you to understand each other more, to see if it's a good fit. So what types of interviews are there? Okay, so we're going to talk about it in two different ways, right? So first of all, we're going to talk about possible interview platforms. This simply means what are the different ways in which you can actually meet with them, right? So three essential ones that are kind of common would be an in-person interview. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with these, right? You go in person and you are face-to-face with your interviewer or interviewers. These are very typical. If you're applying for a job at the mall, you're probably going to go into the store and talk to the manager in person, right? So you're going to encounter these a lot throughout the course of your life. And just know that that's a common way that you're going to be interacting with people is in person. Telephone interviews are also common. Oftentimes, they can kind of be like the first interview that you have, where they call you for I wouldn't call it an informal interview. I would treat everything as a formal interview and be as, together and with it as you can be. But it might be, hey, let me just ask you a few questions and see if we want to move to the next level with you. And that might lead in to an in-person interview, right? Because interviews could be a one-time deal, or they could be 2 or 3 different ones, right? It just depends on what you're applying for. I'll give you an example. If you're applying for a really big scholarship for college, I'm talking like full ride. I had a student who interviewed recently for a full ride scholarship through the Angels Foundation. That was a 3-interview process for her, right? She went through multiple rounds of interviews to be able to qualify for the final round. So that's an example of kind of starting with something and moving on to the next level, right? But conversely, telephone interviews can also be kind of like the last one that you do. Let's say that you hit it off with everybody and all the teams that you would be working with like you. Maybe your final interview is a telephone interview with like the big boss, the final boss, right? It's like the last person who can give you the green light, who wants just to, have a quick chat with you before they give it the green light to hire you or to have you join their team. Finally, and this is going to be increasingly common, as the world changes, online interviews, right? Video conferencing interviews, kind of like what we're doing today, using our webcam, or at least I'm using mine, right? And you can see me. This is great for interviews that allow you to meet with people who are geographically maybe a little bit far away from you. It's also just a very convenient tool because it's great for people who are very busy, right? Let's say that the person that you're interviewing with just has a very busy schedule. It's easier for them to schedule one of these and move on with their day than to have somebody physically come in. So be prepared for more of these. For those of you who are signed up for our mock interviews on May 18th, they will be held via video conferencing. So you'll get your first maybe exposure to this platform. Now, possible interviewing formats. Okay, so again, platforms is how you meet. Formats are the different ways that they're going to be able to interview you when you do meet, right? One-on-one, right, with the interviewer. So that's you and maybe an interviewer or a couple of other people. So it's pretty intimate in that way, in that you're just in a room with maybe 1 or 2 other people, and they're going to be the ones asking you a question, and it really feels like a conversation in that regard. Group interviews are really popular for things like scholarships, like I mentioned earlier. They're popular for interviews where people are going to be evaluated not just on what they have accomplished, you guys, but also how they interact with other people. We'll talk a little bit more about group interviewing tips, okay? But just remember that it's you being kind of evaluated, not just for your responses, but how you respond and how you interact with others. And again, scholarships, maybe special programs, like if you're nominated for Boys State or Girls State, right? You'll be part of a group interview most likely. So that's another format. And then finally, there's also a panel format. it's basically you as the sole interviewer, and then a panel of people who are interviewing you. So maybe there's a lead person, right? And then like 4 or 5 other team members, and you all sit around with each other and they ask you questions kind of one after another, and they take turns. So those are just some of the ways that you might encounter interviews one day. So be prepared for that and understand that it could look any number of ways, okay? All right. So during the interview, okay, we are getting to interviewing tips. Here we go. First and foremost, this is just kind of funny. It's not like hardcore research, right? But it is included in a book and a TED Talk a few years ago. So how many of you are familiar with power poses? Anybody in the chat box? Like, I know what a power pose is. Somebody has told me about that before. Anybody? I'm on a bit of a lag, so I probably won't see your responses right away. Okay, well, Isabella has. I see that. So in any case, power poses are like an instant, like confidence booster, right? You don't do it in your interview. So please just listen to me right now. Do not do a power pose in your interview. Don't show up and starfish, right? Like, don't show up and do that in front of people. But if you need to pump yourself up, maybe before a presentation, maybe it's not an interview, but if you need to pump yourself up and establish a feeling of I've got this, power poses are a great way to physically kind of manifest a feeling, right? And the left side of this infographic are the power poses. Standing in a wide stance, right? Feeling strong and just standing upright. Starfishing is what I call it, the V over your head and just kind of letting it out like a cheerleader, right? Hands on hips, hands above your head like this. And just doing that maybe behind your car or somewhere where they can't see you, or in the bathroom stall before you interview, just to psych yourself up and most likely to make yourself laugh. I've done it before. Just to loosen yourself up is a fun way to get into an interview, and just remember that it's going to be okay and that you've got this, okay? That's the takeaway from this. But it is a fun way to boost your confidence right before. Just don't do it in front of your interviewer. Do not walk away from this telling people that I told you to do that in an interview, okay? So body language tips. You guys were asking about this earlier in the form of how do I demonstrate soft skills, right, in an interview? Well, body language is a huge part of that, right? So what does body language look like? Body language is the way that you express yourself when you move, when you look at somebody, your facial expressions. It's anything that's not verbal that's coming out of your mouth. That's body language. It's your posture, right? And remember this, the minute you walk into the building, right, you're going to be evaluated on your body language. That's, and the way that you present yourself. So go in there feeling good and knowing that, the way that you conduct yourself, even the way that you sit while you're waiting to be called in, it's not the biggest thing. There's not like a rubric in the back where they're judging you behind, a two-way mirror, but they make note of the way that you present yourself, right? So if you're waiting in a room, for example, for somebody to call you in, you don't want to be hunched over like this, right? You probably can't see me that well. You don't want to be hunched over looking at your phone, right? You don't want to be slouching or like leaning back. You want to be confident and just ready to go, okay? Relax and breathe. That will help you reduce things like jittering or shaking or spinning in your seat. If you could see me right now, I did a group interview last year with students, high school students, and so many students would literally pivot around in their chair like this and they wouldn't even know it, and they did it the entirety of their interview, and it's very distracting and it shows that they're nervous, okay? So work on those, and those are things that you can practice just talking to people day in and day out. This is easy practice for you. You can do it anywhere. Remember to smile, be friendly, shake hands confidently. Don't give them like a limp, handshake. Give them a nice solid handshake and introduce yourself. Remember that you want to look at them when you're talking to them. Make eye contact like I'm looking at you right now, but don't be creepy and look at them nonstop to make a point, because that also scares them, right? It's just a nice balance. You can talk, you can look, maybe you can look up and think about something and look back. But when you're interviewing, just be mindful of these things, right? It's not that you have to rehearse every single movement. It's just a feeling of being comfortable in your own body, breathing so that you're relaxed, and being mindful of, your body movements so that you're not doing anything too distracting. Okay. And a big one, and again, I'm going to go back to soft skills, is listening actively by using nonverbal cues, okay? So a lot of people go into interviews thinking it's all about what I'm saying, but it's definitely also how you're saying it, but also how you're listening, okay? It's not just you responding, it's you listening to them asking you a question, telling you about their company. So when you're doing that, you have to show them that you're listening, right? It's like you talking to your best friend and comforting them when they don't feel good. You do things to show them that you're listening, but you're not talking, right? You're nodding. You're acknowledging that you understand what they're saying. You're writing down notes, right? So that you're remembering parts of their question. That's a soft skill that goes a long way, that demonstrates that you are an active listener who is there to take things in as well, not just gush it out, okay? So just a few body language tips for you to remember, but the real takeaway is just to be comfortable in your own skin and to just breathe. Breathing and staying calm will calm your body. So interviewing tips. Now that we kind of have, the body part down, right? And what we're doing physically, how can you be a better interviewer? Okay. Here are some do's and don'ts. Remember, once again, that this is a conversation, not an interrogation. That framework, that frame of mind is something that you have to tell yourself constantly as you prepare, and remind yourself and change that narrative for yourself, that this is not an interrogation, that this is absolutely a conversation between you and somebody who's really interested in hiring you or accepting you into their school, or, electing you as class president, whatever it may be. You got an interview. That's a good sign, right? If you got an interview out of all the people who applied, it's already looking pretty good for you. So keep that in mind, okay? Show enthusiasm. Be stoked on them. Like Monica said earlier, this is crucial, you guys. Researching your organization, company, college, scholarship foundation, whatever it is you're interviewing for, being enthusiastic about them because you know about them will show. It will shine. So it will always come back to the research that you did and how well you know them. And that enthusiasm will shine the more you understand them and what they are all about and what you can bring to the table for them. Okay. Be truthful. If you don't, aren't sure about something, don't lie. Also, don't embellish what you have been able to accomplish. Okay. There's no need to do that. You want to make sure that they want to hire you because you are you and not some weird inflated version of who you are. You don't have to impress anybody. So be truthful. Okay. Match what you're saying, what your responses are, and match it to the job description, right? Remember that they're asking you these questions because they want to see if you can bring something to the table and help their team. How are you going to help them? So your responses, while they should answer the question, if you can tie that back in to, reminding them that, and, I can do this, I can use these skills to contribute to your team's, sales rate for the next month or something like that, right? But tying it back into the job and reminding them why you're there. You're not just there because you're great. You're there because you have specific skills and capabilities that will enhance their organization, right? I had a student who interviewed for a scholarship, another student, and she always brought it back to the fact that the scholarship is great and all, and that's, what she would love to have to help her pay for college, but that she wanted to be a role model for young women in that organization as a representative of that certain, the demographic that she was working with, right? She always tied it back to the fact that, her mission was to be, kind of be a really strong, shining example of what it is to represent that organization. And that goes a long way. Allow yourself some time to think. Don't feel like you have to speed answer everything. You don't have to. Give yourself a moment and actually tell them, say, that's a good question. Let me think about that for a second and then respond. Okay. Take notes. Like Monica said, I write down everybody's names. The minute I sit down and they tell me what their names are, I write it down so that I can refer to them by their name. I think that's a really nice special touch to make them feel like you're really trying to make a connection, and that goes a long way as well. And again, be familiar with the organization, okay? Don't go in there not knowing anything about the college or the job description or the organization or their mission statement. You want to be a total pro on who they are when you walk through that door. So how would you guys answer this question? And do you feel like you could answer this confidently in a 1 to 2 minute response? Tell me about yourself. Tell us about yourself. Isabella, tell me about yourself, right? Like, do you feel confident in answering that right now? Like, would you have your elevator pitch ready to go? What do you think? Would you guys be able to like just kind of knock something out of the park right now? Because that's definitely a question that you're going to be asked, right? Oh no, Isabella, I was just using you as an example. I'm not putting you on the spot. No. Okay. All right. Well, good. That's why we're here, right? So that's one of the things I want you to think about, okay? As you're preparing for your next interview, we have to anticipate what they're going to ask you. But really, at the end of the day, you guys, if you know yourself, if you know your accomplishments, your strengths, your skills, if you can articulately explain just what your involvement has been in the things that you have done, you will be a good interviewer, right? But it starts with understanding yourself. All of this starts with understanding yourself. That career process we talked about earlier, the career major college trajectory, that actually starts with self-exploration before you even go into career exploration, okay? So you have to know yourself. You have to be comfortable with what you have to bring to the table. And I promise you guys have, all of you guys have something to bring to the table. So it's a matter of you doing that work beforehand, before you go into that interview, so that you can, confidently just answer the question because you know who you are, you know what you believe in, what your values are, and what your skills are. So these are some typical questions. I'm not going to go through every single one of them. But that's okay because we're sharing this entire PowerPoint with you and you will have all of this information at your fingertips and you can refer to it at any time, okay? But some very typical questions are, tell me about yourself, right? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Why are you interested in us? That's why research is so important, right? And again, as you answer these questions, you need to tie it back into your role at that company and what they stand for, right? Always tying it back into how you can help them. They want to know how you can help us. They need you because they need you to help them with something. So how are you going to fill that gap for them? Okay. They're also going to ask you if you have questions for them. And it is advisable, you guys, to always have at least a few questions for them. Okay. Always have a couple things that you want to ask them. And go above and beyond just kind of like, what's your favorite part about the job? That's totally fine. But a great thing to ask actually is like, hey, what are you guys struggling right now? And how do you think I can help you with that? Right? What are you as an organization struggling with? What are you as a college struggling with? And how do you think a student like me could help make an impact there? Right? Going back to how can I contribute? Like, how am I going to make you guys better? And how are we going to work together, right? Those are the kind of questions that will really make you shine. And again, we have a bunch of other questions that you could ask. So take a look at these. Again, schedule a one-on-one with us. If you guys want to go in depth and really prepare for something, we are here for you guys to do that, okay? But just know that if you can prepare for the general types of questions that they're going to ask for you, you have a starting place and it'll force you, most importantly, by reviewing these questions, it's going to force you to look inward and it's going to force you to decide, well, gosh, how would I answer this? Like, what do I think about this? And the more you think about that, the more you'll feel confident in your responses and who you are. Okay. I know we're going a little bit over, so I appreciate your patience. We're almost done. Okay. And then we're going to share out all of our resources with you so that you leave here with some things to look at and to use. So situational interviewing tips. I told you I would talk about group counseling, or not counseling. I'm a counselor, so it's always on my mind. Group interviews. Okay. So group interview tips. Again, like I said earlier, group interviews are a great way for interviewers to evaluate not only what you can bring to the table, but how you work with others. How you work with others as a team player, also how you work with others possibly as a leader, right? Are you going to take the initiative to begin a conversation or to answer a question? Are you going to work with other people and kind of bounce off of what they have to say, right? I write down people's names as they respond. I refer back to them in a group interview and say, you know what John said was actually really interesting and I agree. And then elaborate further on how you would answer that question. Be friendly, right? Acknowledge other people. This is a great way for you guys to demonstrate soft skills, is while the other interviewer is answering, you look at them, right? You nod, you respond, you show that you're also listening to them and not just waiting for your turn to talk, right? That's a big thing that I've noticed in group interviews with high school students, is that I think it's the nerves. They just stare at the interviewer and they don't acknowledge their co-interviewees, and then they just wait for their turn to answer and just stop, right? But a good way to be a good group interviewer is to bounce off of other people and to make it a conversation with everybody. Online interviewing is also its own kind of special thing. And I'm sure you guys are learning right now, just being online for school, some of the basic things that you should have prepared. You want your space cleared. You want your background to be nice and professional and clean looking, right? You want to test that platform service that you're going to use beforehand so that you know how to use all the controls. You want to turn off your phone so that it is silent so that you are not distracted. Write notes. Again, when you're online, you guys, you can still be actively listening to them, right? I'm looking at you right now. I'm looking into the camera lens. I'm not looking at my screen. I'm looking into the camera lens and I'm simulating eye contact with the person on the other side. This is a great tool for you to use when you're answering questions in a web interview. So for those of you who are going to the mock interviews, my juniors and seniors, look into the camera lens when you're answering your interviewer. It's going to feel weird, but it's going to give them a real sense that you're actually talking to them. And that goes a long way. That's a soft skill. Okay. And dress professionally. Don't show up in, a t-shirt just because you're at home. You want to wear exactly what you would wear to an interview. You're just sitting on your couch or at your dining table at home. Okay. Very important that you maintain that sense of professionalism. So what do you do after the interview? Really, really important rule of thumb is to follow up somehow, some way, right? You can send them a thank you note, handwritten, if you want to be old school and just really like extra, or you can email them a thank you note, right? Whatever you can do, whatever you have the bandwidth for. But within 24 hours of meeting that team, send them a thank you note and make it brief. I linked here, and you should have access to it when you have the PDF of the presentation, a sample of a thank you note. It's brief. It's just thanking them, maybe remarking upon something that you found really interesting and looking forward to hearing from them. That's about it. It's just common courtesy and etiquette. Notify your references that you just interviewed and they might be contacted. So they got a heads up that somebody might call them. And then evaluate your performance. You're going to have some questions that you feel you really got stumped on, and that's your time to write it down and rework that answer for your next interview. Okay, this is a time for you to reflect and to make sure that you're going to be better.
B?
Yes.
Yeah. So I've on the messages we're seeing that some students can't hear you. So let's try to reconnect with some of them.
Okay. Can you guys hear me okay right now? It might be my connection.
It might be on their end as well. So
it could be. Yes. Is it okay? So everybody can hear me right now. Okay, guys. All right, guys.
All right,
okay.
Good.
Okay. So I'm back. Okay, guys. And we'll have a recording. So anything that you missed, please watch the recording. I'm so sorry I cut out. Okay, guys. All right. I'm going to keep going because I want to honor your time. Okay. Thanks, guys. Okay. So again, evaluate your performance. How can you be better for the next interview? You're always going to get better. Don't forget that with every interview that you do, you're going to get better if you evaluate yourself every time. Okay. Monica, bring us on home. Or I can, Monica, bring us on home.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, B. All right. So now that you've kind of established, hopefully knows you can take some skills home and kind of get practicing and all of that, we are offering this opportunity for 11th and 12th grade students only to come and do mock interviews with us. These are going to be held online through Zoom. We are asking if you are going to join us, we have the link at the bottom of this slide so that you can register for this point. We only have a few spots left. So if you do want to join us, 11th to 12th grade students, make sure that you go ahead and register now because we don't have very many spots left. If you do join us for that event, we're asking you to wear professional attire just like you would for a formal interview. So again, I went over what kinds of things you should be wearing. These interviews will be facilitated by community business partners. So we have really awesome people who have volunteered their time to come and interview you. We have really awesome people from our community that are going to be there helping you out develop your interviewing skills. And then we're also going to be having our futurology coordinator, Anthony Rosamano, doing a resume review workshop or facilitating a peer review resume workshop. So besides, working on your interviewing skills, we're actually going to have an opportunity for you to get some feedback on your resume, so that you can keep improving on that. So if you would like to join us, the registration link is on there. You can go to our website as well, and you can go to events and appointments, and you can find it there as well. Okay. So now, before we get to kind of share out the resources and do some file drop, right? Send you home with some files. Can you please scan this QR code? Go ahead and take out your phone and hover your camera over this QR code just to give us some feedback. We really appreciate it. We want to know how we can improve our program. We want to know what you thought about this presentation and anything like that. So it'd be really helpful for you to do it. So I'm going to give you just another minute for you to complete that. And thank you for those that are working on it right now and who submitted.
Yeah, thank you guys. We really appreciate your feedback because it's going to guide how we deliver information to you guys down the line. We want to make sure that we're always addressing, what you need, and hoping that you got something out of this today. And like Monica said, we'll be sharing out all of our files after this as well. And then we can hang back for a Q&A. Give you maybe
yeah. No, I was just going to say thank you for the feedback. I see some comments, really nice comments. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
You guys are awesome. Thank you. All right, maybe one more minute and we're going to move on to slides, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and now that you guys have access to it on your phone, you can go back to it later.
Yeah, so just a few more seconds. I'm going to switch over at 6:12.
Thank you, guys. Don't leave us yet. We have files to share with you, okay? All right, 6:12. Let's do this.
All right. So these are just, this will also be available in the PDF file that we share with you in the next slide. But these are just different kind of resources that you can have access to, like sample resume, interview questions, how build resume building websites, any tips that you can check on here, how to search for jobs. We have a few links on there, and then just kind of how to look up the occupation outlook. So if you look up for an occupation outlook, you get information like what is that occupation that you're looking at, how much money are they making, what is the growth going to look like, all those different things. We also included that in our resources. So again, you're going to get these resources in the next slide when we drop the files.
Here we go, guys. Dropping it right now. So we are sharing a zip folder with you. So you'll save that onto any folder you want on your computer. Could be on your desktop, wherever you want. And then you'll be able to open up that zip folder and get all of our resources. We're so glad that this was helpful for you guys. We really appreciate you spending a Friday evening with us. And we'll hang back for some questions if you have questions. Otherwise, you are welcome to enjoy the rest of your Friday evening and have a wonderful weekend. And we hope that you are all well and safe and happy and healthy.
Yes, thank you so much. We hope you enjoyed this presentation, that you got a lot of it. And again, like B said, thank you so much for taking some time from your Friday night. I know a lot of you are home, but it does mean a lot that you have decided to come and see us and talk about this topic. We hope you got a lot from it, and we're going to stick around for questions, okay?
All right, guys, questions. I'll leave the file sharing open so you can just keep at it if you need to save it. These are our email addresses. If you have questions, you are always welcome to schedule an appointment with us. If you need follow-up or more in-depth information or preparation, we will hook you up, okay? So please take advantage of what we have to offer. We are meeting with families still online, so come see us. All right, if you have any questions, you can pop them in the chat box and mark it as a Q. Otherwise, you guys enjoy your weekend, and we'll be here for a little bit, okay?
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
And thank you, Kristen, for also helping us out with answering some questions.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you for manning that chat box like the pro that you are.
And Anthony as well.
And Anthony, thank you.
Yeah.
So, right. And are you referring, and how do I say, is it matin? Is it French? In any case, you tell me, you can write it phonetically, so I don't want to mess up your name. But, so as far as, are you referring specifically to demonstrating a skill, like being asked to complete a task during an interview? Is that what you're referring to?
Mateen.
Thank you for that, Mateen. So Mateen, confirm for me that that's what you meant, that what do you do to prepare for like a task related interview where they ask you to do something? Like show me what you got kind of a thing. Okay. Well, I mean, the thing is that you can't always anticipate what they are going to ask you to do, right? I've been on many job interviews where I've been actually asked to complete a task, and it is very difficult to predict what it is they're going to ask you to do. It's going to rely on your skill set and the knowledge that you already have in whatever it is. For example, software engineering, right? Whatever experience you have had doing things in that area, right? You will be able to demonstrate. I mean, you can talk to, industry professionals to see what kind of tasks they might have potential employees do. I think that would actually be a really good informational interviewing question to do. And what I mean by that, Mateen, is if you want to become a software engineer, go find software engineers right now and interview them and say, can I do a job interview with informational interview to learn more about your position? And what you can do is ask them specifically, like, if you have task-related interviews, like what do you have your candidates do? And get a sense from them what they're asking people to do. But it's gonna go back to what your skill set is, and you can either demonstrate it or you don't. But I would definitely ask people in the industry for some feedback. Monica, do you have anything else to add for that?
Yeah. Also, pay close attention to the job description. If they're they're asking for a specific skill set that an applicant has to have, then make sure that you either if you already have those skills, then that's great. But if you're like, well, I'm kind of not very good at this, then that's something that either you need to kind of work on, or you might say, well, maybe this is not the job that's a good fit for me. But you want to pay close attention to the job description so that you can anticipate what kind of things they're going to be asking you about, what kind of skills you're supposed to possess for that position.
Absolutely, yes. Samantha, I believe we did include a job search website in our resources. Yeah, Monica?
Yes, we did.
Oh, yes. So we have that in the resources, and we're still sharing out that file. Aviana, I love your question, and I wish I would have touched on it, but this is being recorded, so whoever is still sticking on right now, you guys are going to get the answer. Great question. So for the strengths and weaknesses question, it's kind of tricky. For the strengths, first of all, they'll typically ask you in two different parts, not all together. But for your strengths, I am hardworking is there's nothing to back that up, right? So the go-to for answering any question is to give examples, right? And to let your actions demonstrate the answer. So yes, maybe you can say that I'm hardworking, but you need to back that up with an example of how. I like to use, for that question, I like to say, I think all of my colleagues and my supervisors would say that I am, a great leader. I've volunteered to be, the lead on various projects. I've become a mentor to so-and-so, I was elected this and this. And I think that demonstrates my strengths in these areas, right? And so you tie it back to an example, but you got to back up what you say. You can't just say I'm hardworking. And that applies for personal statements as well. And for weaknesses, I don't like to repeat the word weakness. I think it's a weird psychological thing, but I don't want to say my weakness is blah, blah, blah. There's always something that we have to work on, and you should always have something that you want to work on, and you can phrase it that way. So, I've been really working on balancing school and my personal life. And, I'm working on that by, using a planner and getting myself more organized in that regard so that I can have a better life-work balance, because it's something that I've struggled with, but I'm addressing right now. So you state something that you want to work on and how you're working on addressing it. They want to know that you're solving the problem, not just that it's a problem. Monica?
Mm-hmm. No, I think you kind of touched on everything. Like we said, you need to provide examples. You can't just, leave it as well, I am a reliable person. They don't know you, right? You need to kind of tell them what exactly it is that makes you reliable. And I love that B said, that you need to, in terms of weaknesses, you need to talk about what are the areas for growth, right? What are the areas I need to improve on, to develop? I know we talked about earlier about if you don't have a skill, right? You can say, I'm willing to learn, and I'm willing to, expand on this, and I am willing to, to either do some professional development or, learn a new skill, because I am trying to. That's an area of growth for me. But yes. Mateen has another question. Let's see. Can I just work on it? First, I should have focused more on his career choice.
Well, Mateen, it's really important to get experience, right? And this depends on when you're talking about. Are you talking about now as a high school student, or right out of college? Should you just, you're welcome. Should you just, are you saying after college, should I just get anything just to get in there? Or are you referring to now? I think having experience is important. I think you can start that now with internships. I think you can start that now with job shadowing. I think you start that now with, a summer job, just being the file person for a company that you would want to be an employee at. I think that research can start early on to inform what kind of sector you might want to go in, what specialization you might want to have. So as a high school student, then, if that's your question, Mateen, then you can start now by interning and by job shadowing, and you can be a little picky about that. You don't have to just go out there and do anything, right? You can look and see what is appealing to you and find a way to approach them to be an intern or to get a summer job. I think that's invaluable experience. And if it's a job and you're getting paid for it, even better. But don't do something and just slave away just because you think it's going to help you in the long run. It's to enrich you and to give you some exposure, but not at the expense of your comfort and, your sanity, right? You don't want to just jump into anything.
Yeah. And I think, if you are going to jump into something, you also want to consider that that's an experience. You want to immerse yourself and get ready for the world of work. So if you do it as a high school student, you'll be more knowledgeable about the world of work. You'll be more knowledgeable about what makes you a competitive applicant. You'll have that experience that you can use to kind of make a decision about, if you make a decision about, if you go into an internship or a position that you you kind of have an idea that you want to pursue a long life career in that kind of also gives you an idea of where to make a decision about whether or not you actually would enjoy that career in the future. So you don't want to just mindlessly, join any job that comes up in your path.
Okay, I'm going to jump over to Elizabeth quickly. Okay, so Elizabeth, that's a good question about going into a more creative area, right? My answer to you would be to be yourself. Okay, you don't. Throughout all of this, you don't have to, it's not that you have to hide who you are. If you are effervescent and bubbly and happy and enthusiastic and kind of quirky, that's okay. Like, do you, do you. You should be authentic. You should be yourself. So it's not that you have to somehow dull down and mute your personality, right? You can be who you are and also be professional, right? We're not there to be best friends with the CEO. We're not there to be chummy with them and get all weird and personal during an interview, but we can still be ourselves and be who we are, and maintain that level of I'm here for a job interview and I'm going to answer your questions and I'm going to demonstrate my skill to you and also be myself. Does that make sense? It's kind of like a weird answer, but you can be yourself, right? We're not asking you to not be yourself.
Yeah, and you should definitely be yourself, because as B mentioned earlier, this is it's not just the employer who's finding out if you're a good fit, right? You're also finding out if this is a good fit for you. So if you go in there and they're not kind of responding to who you are, then maybe that's not the place that you would be happy working in or being part of. So you definitely want to go in there being yourself, but also, as B said, you can still be professional, but also be yourself.
Absolutely. Okay, Mateen. Well, Mateen, how do you stand out, right? I mean, again, that also goes back to you're welcome, Elizabeth. It goes back to being who you are and what kind of worker you are, right? So I think if you are a hard worker and you're in there and you're trying to be a team player, that will be evident. Right? I think for things like raises and moving up in the company, if that's important to you, that you got to show them by doing. You don't show them by saying or asking. Okay. You got to walk the walk, basically. That's my short answer for you. Okay. Is if you want to move up and if you want to be, big man, on top, then you've got to show them by doing the things, right? You've got to be a team player. You have to get in there and demonstrate that you're willing to work and to support that organization or that company. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is definitely a time and a place if if you've been there for a long time and you want to discuss your salary. I mean, there's a conversation that you can have, but I mean, ultimately it's important for you to walk the walk. But I encourage you, if you have a lot of questions and you want to really plan this out, meet with us, schedule an appointment to meet with us.
Yeah, especially if you want to get I know I've met with students before who want me to review their resume. So I've done that for students. So we can discuss more in depth if we have a one-on-one appointment.
Samantha, do we have an internship resource? We might not, but you can, it depends on what you want to intern for, right? So what I would suggest, Samantha, is write down one of our emails and email one of us and let us know what you're looking for. And we can look some stuff up for you and guide you in the right direction. It just kind of depends what you're trying to intern for.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, and we are going to wrap up questions in a little bit because this is being recorded, and we want to make sure that we're respecting the time of people viewing this as well. You're welcome.
You're welcome, Samantha.
UCI will have some research opportunities for high school students over the summers. This summer is probably not going to happen, Samantha, but just FYI, if you look at universities and colleges in the area, there are usually some kind of internship opportunities for research for high school students. Pretty competitive, though.
Yes.
You're welcome, Mateen. Thank you so much for joining, you guys. If you don't have any further questions, you're welcome to close out and email us if you have any questions.
Yeah.
We're going to
Thank
go
you
off
all.
air. Yes, thank you. We're going to go off air in about a minute, okay? Okay. All right. Well, Monica, thank you for everybody who's watching the recording to the very last minute. Thank you for being with us. We are going
Yes.
off the air now.
All right. Good night, everybody.
All right. Good night, everybody.